molecular compound, in difference with the ionic compound, they what we see here is that are two non-metals are bonded together. Uh, and if in the ionic compound, what was happening was that the electrons were shared. So I don't want this, take it, and I take it. By giving it, I turn myself into a positive charge, and you, by receiving it, turn yourself into negative charge. Boom, two opposite charges are attracted to each other. With the molecular compound, what is happening is that the electrons are shared into pairs. So two electrons are shared between two elements. Uh, Remember what I said for the ionic compound, that if you place the two fingers and they are apart from each other, then you are dealing with an ionic compound. In difference with a molecular compound, if you are placing two fingers, then you will be above the staircase, which means that you will be uh, with two non-metals, which means that you have a molecular compound. Uh, Very important thing with the molecular compounds is that you are uh, there is, let's say, there is not a specific order as to what is the chemical formula. We know the common ones, but what is the chemical formula of the uh, molecular compound? There is not the same thing as what we did into ionic compound, that if we have magnesium and then oxygen, then you will see just all the time you will see magnesium is one and oxygen is one. So MgO. In the case of the molecular compounds, you will see some that are very specific, like O2, H2, and all those stuff. However, very often you will see that, let's say, carbon and hydrogen are in various forms, and those are even known with a specific name, that is the hydrocarbons. So molecular compounds, when we are naming, if usually we have two or three elements that are combined together, but naming it is with that table, that is when you have one element. So naming based on IUPAC uh, rules. When you have one, it's identify as mono, but if it is the first element that has one, then you don't even mention that. And then two is di, three is three elements is three, and so on. You have that table posted on D2L under the explanation. So take a look at that table if you do not remember. And the way uh, that we write the name of the element is we start with the suffix. So let's say that we have this, which is one carbon and one oxygen. Okay, so since we have, for the first element we have one, that, and it is the first element, we do not mention the word mono, but we say carbon. So we start with the first element, and then the second element as well has only one atom on it. However, since it is the second element, we will mention the word mono oxide, starting with the root of the second element and then IDE. But if we have, let's suppose, CO2, which is again a molecular compound, because the electrons are not exchanged, but they are shared between each other. then the name of this compound will be, since we have one carbon and is the first one, we do not mention it. Again, will be carbon. The second element has a suffix of 2, then will be dioxide. Okay. So the big difference between molecular and the ionic compound is that molecular compounds are bonded together by sharing the electrons. So the electron is shared between the two elements, or 3 or more. But in a difference with the ionic compound, that the electrons are exchanged, and the naming of the molecular compound is using the table, which, as I said, is posted on D12. You can refer to it, and you have to remember from 1 to 10. So mono, di, tri, hecta, hepta, all the other, octa, nona, and deca. That is the last one. You have to remember that. Not that we will use too much the last ones, but however, it is a requirement that you remember those. And when you are naming them, you start with the suffix of the first element, and if it is 1, then you don't mention it, and then the name of the element, suffix of the second element, and with IDE. We'll talk about the molecular properties when the time appears to tackle and talk more about what is the solubility and all that other stuff.